Hi everyone, today was the opening ceremonies for the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. So I thought today would be the most appropriate day to review my custom tight lacing underbust corset by Couture. The corseteer for Couture is Yana Sinner, who is an amazing designer and model in her own right. So without further ado, let's get on with the review. So here is the front, the side, the back, and the other side. This corset was custom made for me, so the measurements are a little bit moot, but for those curious, the center front here is 11 inches long, and on the princess seam from the underbust to the lap area is 9.5 inches. I adore the hourglass silhouette that this corset gives me. Because of the cupped ribs here, I find it very easy to cinch down, and it also has a little bit of cupped hips here too, so I don't find any pinching or numbness on my hips, which is a good thing. Obviously it's made to measure, so that is a factor as well. I think it's a little bit long line. My iliac crest is around here, so it extends down maybe another inch or inch and a half at the bottom there, but obviously not so long line that you're not able to sit down. I find it to be very flattering and extremely comfortable. Here's the Couture underbust corset laying flat, and for the materials of this, I believe there are 3 layers. It feels like there are 3 layers in here. For the fashion fabric, I chose this limited edition Italian rose style twill, and then there is an interlining of a strength fabric, and then on the inside here, if I can open this corset, you'll see that there is a floating lining. And if I actually give you a close-up of the lining, I'm not sure if it's going to come out on camera. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is going to come out on camera, but it has this almost infinitesimally small herringbone weave going across the lining fabric. So even though it's very, very soft, it's also quite strong in itself. Actually, this floating lining feels like it might be interfaced as well. So it's quite smooth and strong against the body. Here's what the Couture label looks like on my corset. It's the name printed on lavender ribbon, and it's hidden underneath the Modesty panel of this corset. Turning the corset on its side here, for the pattern of this, it's a 7-panel pattern, so 14 panels total. So 1, 2, 3, 4 makes the front of the corset, and then 5, 6, 7 makes the back of the corset. So between panels 4 and 5, you can see the extreme curve of the hip here. It's very comfortable. So the first 4 panels are more narrow than the back 3 panels here. It's single boned on the seams here. For the actual construction of this corset, I believe that the fashion fabric was backed onto the strength fabric, the interlining of the corset, and then the panels were assembled using a top stitch. So there is a tiny little top stitch between each panel. And then, like I said before, the inside is a floating lining. There is an invisible waist tape in this corset sandwiched between the layers. It's a little bit difficult to detect, but I feel a waist tape in the front here. I feel the slight outline around here, and you can also see the outline a little bit if I hold the lining taut and hold it on an angle. You might be able to see the outline of the waist tape coming across here on the back panel as well. So that is about 1.5 inches wide. It's a little bit wider than the normal waist tapes that you see in other corsets. Here's a close-up of the binding on this corset. It's made from commercial black satin bias binding. It's machine stitched on the outside, and then on the inside it has a hand finish, so it's sewn down with this invisible stitch here. So it's very neat and smooth and clean looking on the outside and on the inside. The Modesty panel on this corset is about 5.5 inches wide, so it is probably about 3.5 inches of usable space. It's unstiffened and stitched to one side of the corset here. Now, you cannot remove this Modesty panel without removing some of the stitching that holds in the boning. So if you want to remove a Modesty panel, you would just have to cut it off. But I'm sure if you requested that your corset did not come with a Modesty panel, then Yana would be able to do that for you. So it's finished in the rose twill to match the rest of the corset, and it's also lined in the same lining fabric as the floating lining here. And there is a really tiny Modesty placket by the knob side of the busk here. It's just about 1/4 inch wide, so it's just wide enough so that when you put the busk together, your shirt isn't going to show through. So it works fine. It's just not as hefty as some other Modesty plackets that I've seen in the past. The busk in this corset is 9.5 inches long, so it has 5 pins. The last 2 pins are a little bit closer together for more control over the tummy. And on the top here, there is another inch or so that does not have a busk, but she put in little grommets so that you can lace it up with this ribbon here, and so that will keep the top closed. It's a standard width flexible busk, so it's 1/2 inch on each side. It's fairly bendy, but with the bones on either side of the busk here, it gives it a little bit more stability. This corset has a total of 16 bones, so 8 on each side. It's single bone on the seams here, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bones, I believe. And then on the back here, you can see that there are 2 flat steel bones sandwiching the grommets. However, Yana did mention on her Etsy listing that the number of bones in a corset can depend on the size of the corset as well, so just keep that in mind. Here's a close-up of the grommets. There are a total of 24 of them, so 12 on each side. They're 2-part size 00 grommets with a small to medium flange around them. They're all holding in very nicely. They're not pulling out at all. They're finished in this gunmetal gray, which is actually, it's rubbing off a little bit just from how often I wear this corset and the rubbing of the ribbon across them. But they're not really tarnishing, they're not rusting, it's just the color coming off. Here's a close-up of the back of the grommets. So the washer is about the same size. They're all holding in very, very well. I don't see any hint of fraying around of the fabric around these grommets, even at the waistline, so they're holding in quite well. You can see that they're spaced pretty much equidistantly. A little bit more of the paint or the coloring rubbing off in the back here, but once again, I don't think it's tarnishing, so I'm not going to worry about that. There are a couple of splits here and there, but they don't catch on the laces, so it doesn't affect the actual lacing process. And the laces here are 3/8 of an inch wide, black satin ribbon, so it's double-faced satin, so it's quite strong. No stretch to them. I find that they glide well through the laces, and they're not too slippery when I'm tying a bow, so they work just fine. The price for a custom underbust tight lacing corset by Couture starts at $300 US on Etsy. So this concludes my review of the custom tight lacing underbust corset made by Couture. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new, and if you did, please remember to click that like button as it helps support this channel. If you have any comments or questions about this corset or Couture in general, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to get back to you or forward your questions to Yana. So I will see you all after the weekend for another video. Bye!